I'm Brian with Montana Angler. This morning I'm out here on the Madison River. It's late June, and we have a lot of aquatic hatches that we see this time of year. And I'd like to share a few tips on how to change your fishing game as a day goes on, from morning, mid-afternoon, throughout the day, during these times of year when lots of bugs are prolifically hatching on our Montana rivers. Typically, at the start of the day, trout are not actively feeding. The fish are going to be resting. We're going to find them in slower water. The aquatic hatches haven't occurred yet. Whether it's mayflies, caddisfly, pupa, stoneflies, it doesn't really matter. They're just starting to get active and crawl a bit. It's important to find that resting water, slow things down. We're going to fish nymph pattern subsurface, and you got to go to high concentrations of trout and really deliver your pattern right to the fish. As the day warms up and the water temperature continues to warm, the nymphs of whatever species of insect that will hatch later in the day, they become quite active. Stoneflies start to crawl to the banks to emerge. Mayfly nymphs start to come out of the hiding positions. Trout start to notice this and they become more active. Fish will often begin to move into faster water, into riffles along the banks. They're now actively hunting the nymphs. Try to find the water where those fish are hunting. We can start to cover a little more water. The fish are now moving further to take our flies. Just before adult insects begin to hatch is a great time to fish. This is when the nymphs become very active. Stoneflies begin to migrate to banks. Mayflies, some of them are just starting to hatch or they're crawling around the rocks. Fish become more active too. They start to slide into faster water. They're hunting these nymphs. This is a great time to fish. I love to start to fish patterns that imitate the emergers at this time. Once hatches begin in earnest, fish will peak in their feeding activity. It's really important that you observe what's happening closely. Watch where the fish are feeding. Look for how they're rising. That'll help you determine if they're eating caddisflies or mayflies or stoneflies. Try to time your cast to the rhythm of the rising trout. And finally, pay attention to your fly patterns. The trout can get selective. They may want a crippled emerger. They may want one species over another. It's very important to use all your powers of observation during this time to optimize your fishing during the peak emergence. All good things eventually come to an end, and this is certainly true of insect hatches. Once the main emergence is finished, you can still have some productive fishing. There's generally still a couple trout in the river that are hungry. They're going to move into slower water, but shallow water if they're still interested in feeding. They're looking for some of the stillborns, the insects that died in the emerging process. You'll see subtle sipping rises. And the good news is a lot of times these are bigger fish. If you're out on the river when we have a lot of aquatic insect hatches, time of the day is really, really important. You need to know if you're fishing before the hatch, during the hatch, or after the hatch, and adjust your game plan accordingly.